Kimura-yu was once assured by a man that he would destroy all monsters with a slingshot, and he promised that if you ever became an awakener, he would understand what he meant. Many years later, before awakening, you faced an orc and instinctively shot it between the eyes with a slingshot. As a flash of light appeared, he was brought back to reality where he found several cans of water knocked over. Jun, a young boy, excitedly proclaimed you as the strongest person with a hidden job, but you reminded him not to boast. At that moment, Mia Kandu, the deputy leader of the second team of the Hunter Association, approached you to remind him of an upcoming dungeon raid, assuring him that he would be on time. As he was advising his brother, Mia remembered the tragedy of his family. His father disappeared during a dungeon breakthrough. His mother was killed by a monster, and his brother was never found. Yuvan awakened as a child, but his hidden job being a slingshot was mocked by many. Despite this, Yu was steadfast, honing his skills and understanding them well. A man believed that Yu could awaken a second time and pleaded with Mia to take care of him. Meanwhile, Yu continued teaching Jun to shoot the slingshot, and when Jun accidentally hit another water can instead of the target, Yu just laughed and promised to teach him more next time, assuring him that he would take him to Manhwa the following day. Afterwards, Yu got into a car with Mia, sincerely thanking her for always taking care of him. Mia complained about Hunter Nishi calling too often, leaving her exhausted, while Yu could only apologize. Suddenly, Mia mentioned that he didn't need to worry about the rumors around him. Confused, Yu listened as she pointed out how he always lost contact during dungeon raids and then reappeared unexpectedly. Mia asserted that if he could hear from a distance, then the index he registered with the association was incorrect. Shocked by her perceptiveness, Yu hesitantly revealed that his sensory index was 47, causing Mia to slam on the brakes and shout in surprise. Yu hurriedly asked her not to yell, but Mia was still shocked that the index was so high while his mana was only 0.06. She wondered why Yu had not reported this when he could clearly qualify as a C-rank hunter. Yu sheepishly replied that he only managed to defeat the orc, and that his sensory abilities did not directly relate to combat, and he did not want to stand out. Mia thought to herself that if one of Yu's indices was so high, the others might be similar. She recalled Yuzuru, an S-rank awakener who had been a C-rank hunter with the hidden job of Holy Sword before his third awakening. Therefore, Mia believed that Yu's second awakening would greatly benefit the association. She then informed him that the current gate was rated E, but Yu sensed a strong mana presence, suspecting it was close to a D level. Upon arrival, he heard the unpleasant gossip of other hunters about him. Looking at the stats board, Yu reminded himself that his unusually high sensory index allowed him to hear everything they were saying. Yu checked the stats board and realized that all his indices had never increased except for his sensory abilities. He silently apologized to Mia and admitted that his current sensory index was 97, but he knew that saying it out loud would make no one believe him. At the site, he heard people whispering, calling him a VIP, which he scorned because he understood they didn't know he could hear them. Yu approached the manager to inquire about the dungeon gate, this time suspecting it was an E level close to D, but the manager confirmed it was just a normal E level. Yu wondered if he was wrong or if it was just a bad day. A hunter asked him about the raid the day after tomorrow. Before he could respond, Nishi-juji loudly warned Yu to back off if he didn't want to get hurt. Yu responded coolly, but Nishi just smirked, saying he would understand soon. As the raid began, the group of awakeners proceeded inside. The manager confirmed everything and officially declared the E-level gate open. Yu surveyed the surroundings and thought it seemed like a normal gate. However, when a troll appeared, the group of hunters quickly took positions. But at that moment, another troll burst out of the bushes. Yu quickly realized there were a total of 6 trolls and 10 orcs. The group hastily organized their formation for combat. While everyone else fought, Yu just stood watching. Suddenly, an orc charged at Nishi. Yu drew his slingshot, trying to stay calm. This scene reminded him of his past, the days when he was a child and had faced an orc before his awakening. It was also the day Yu awakened as a slingshot user and became the youngest awakener in Japan. However, his test results were only F level, making him the weakest even among his peers. While Nishi was still in shock, Yu had already taken down the troll with his slingshot, leaving Nishi astonished but thankful. As Yu checked the system notifications, he realized that accumulating points had become slower, even though he still earned points for defeating enemies, which puzzled him. Suddenly, an orc charged from behind and someone shouted a warning. Yu quickly reacted, activating his unique skill, Pebble Shooter's Hand, and shot the orc's head, causing it to explode. The friction generated mana, enhancing the projectile's destructive power. This was Yu's only offensive skill, given his extremely low mana level. While contemplating why his skills hadn't leveled up despite countless dungeon raids, Yu managed to take down 2 more orcs thanks to his extraordinary sensory perception. The group of awakeners murmured as they saw the pile of monster corpses, affirming that Yu had handled them all. Someone praised him, but was quickly reminded to keep it down, fearing Nishi might hear. Yu sat in a corner, bitter about having to overhear all these comments. At this time, Mishi asked if anyone was injured, and it was reported that Yamazaki had a shoulder wound, but it wasn't too serious. Then Kizuraji Nana suggested providing treatment, and the group of Awakeners was pleased to see her proactive, appreciating her capabilities for the upcoming boss battle. Nishi led the group back to the dungeon gate after Nana had finished treating the injuries. He warned everyone about the boss room, also stating that anyone who felt useless could stay behind. As they stepped in, they encountered a minotaur. Nishi immediately took command, organizing the formation, but before he could finish, the boss charged from behind him. Nishi reacted quickly, blocking the attack and striking back with his sword. Some Awakeners praised his skills, acknowledging his strictness but undeniable competence. They also discussed rumors about his promotion to D level. Hearing this, Nishi loudly reminded the mages to stay focused and not miss their cue to attack. At this moment, he was standing still, observing when Nan approached him. She asked what he was thinking about and introduced herself. Yu also introduced himself and recognized her as the one who had treated Yamazaki. He awkwardly said that he would anger others if he got in their way. Nana was surprised and asserted that Yu was quite strong. She admitted that she initially had a bad impression of him, but now thought differently and quickly apologized. Yu responded that he was used to it and modestly claimed he was only capable of handling the orcs. Encouraged by Nana's words and her assurance that with increased mana, he could defeat even more monsters and his impressive shooting accuracy, Yu was momentarily taken aback. Then he impulsively asked if she would like to learn how to use a slingshot. Nana was initially flustered but agreed. As she turned away, Yu noticed she carried a slingshot herself, which he silently appreciated. He affirmed that slingshot technique was not simple, requiring skill, and promised to teach her once they were outside. Nana was about to take out her phone thinking they would exchange numbers, but her phone froze, leaving her face expressionless. Unaware of her technical issue, Yu simply advised her to wait until the others finished with the boss. Meanwhile, the rest of the group became noisy, relieved as they collected mana crystals. Yu held a crystal in his hand, considering using it to buy a birthday present for June. He guessed that the boy wanted to become a blacksmith and reminded himself to bring Mihara along. Suddenly, a notification appeared. The system informed Yu that he was close to achieving a goal he hadn't reached in over 10 years. Confused about what had changed, he didn't have time to ponder as a sense of unease grew. Looking around, he cautiously realized that although the boss had been defeated, something was still amiss. Activating his heightened senses, Yu detected a weaker F-level gate, smaller than the E-level gate they had just destroyed. At that moment, a news alert sounded, reporting that a delayed detection of an F-level gate in a warehouse had led to a family's death. The gate was so small that even the most advanced detectors struggled to identify it. The public was furiously criticizing the government. Shocked by the news, Yu bumped into someone as he rushed forward. He panicked, realizing that even a small F-level gate could be disastrous for ordinary people. His heart clenched, incredulous that they had overlooked a dangerous gate because a larger one had appeared. He hurriedly ran to where Mia was, his face pale. She was about to congratulate him, but immediately grew concerned upon seeing Yu's expression. Trembling, he begged her to take him somewhere immediately. A gate had opened there, and he needed to go right away. As he spoke, memories of his childhood suddenly flooded back. Mia, driving with Yu, questions the matter regarding the different gate. She doesn't believe him as he isn't a human detector. Yu, in distress, explains that he asked her because he knows nobody else would believe him. Maya suggests waiting because he might be wrong, but he insists it would be too late by then as the gate is becoming unstable. As the gate gradually opens, Yu immediately shouts to request that Mia deploy E-level hunters. She doesn't understand the reason, so Yu explains that it's an E-level gate and trolls are appearing. Before leaving, Yu also asks Mia to contact Tetsu. As soon as Tetsu takes the call, he confirms it as an F-level gate and plans to send hunters. Mia quickly reports a dungeon raid and the need for E-level hunters or higher. Hearing this, he immediately worries and confirms that Yu can't fight the trolls. While still issuing orders for reinforcements, Yu has already taken action. Tetsu, angered, asks to stop him from doing anything reckless and promises to send help as fast as possible. Meanwhile, Yu has arrived at the scene, quickly killing a troll. The system announces he has earned points. Looking up, he worries as there are still 4 more and can't see Jun anywhere. Remembering Jun's promise to forge him a bow, he grows even more concerned for the boy's safety. Simultaneously, in a classroom, a boy protects 2 other children. As a troll prepares to attack, Yu timely appears and defeats it. The children burst into tears, overjoyed at seeing him. He exhales in relief and instructs the children to stay put until other hunters arrive. Yu silently thinks a hunter capable of defeating trolls will soon arrive, but for now, he must hold on. Yu slams into a door and appears in a room. Seeing everyone safe, he feels relieved, but immediately worries again as he can't attack with many people around. The space is too cramped to dodge, and his speed stats are not high enough. He needs to buy just 1 more minute. Jun joyfully calls out his name, loudly boasting to everyone that he is very strong. Helplessly, Yu thinks the boy is making the monster even angrier. As the troll roars, you realizes he has no choice but to fight directly. He activates his skill, Meteor Stone Fingers, but the shot is deflected by the troll, leaving him desperate as he can't inflict damage. You thinks of the favors he owes, wondering if this might be the end. Suddenly, the system announces he has defeated an enemy and earned points. A monster falls. You is astonished to realize that the bullet he fired earlier, which was blocked, had actually hit another troll. At the same time, the system opens an exclusive store, announces his achievement of a new level, and suggests upgrading his skills due to the strength of the enemies. As the troll continues to roar, the system keeps reminding him of a free upgrade available. Without hesitation, you accepts. The system immediately bypasses the quest conditions and upgrades his Meteor Stone Fingers to level 2. You reflects on the past 10 years during which those around him continuously grew stronger while he remained stagnant. Now he also wants to become stronger. The troll in front of him resembles the orc from years ago. You loads his bow, fires, and a brilliant beam of light shoots directly at the monster. You shoots an arrow at the troll. Although it raises its sword to block, the arrow pierces through and finishes it off. Both you and the director are stunned. You, bewildered, thinks that despite his efforts over the past decade, he was unable to overcome the barrier of his limitations, yet now it seems to be collapsing right before his eyes. The director stammers, asking what is happening, and you is at a loss for words. Jun rushes to embrace him, delighted that you came because of him. The director watches this scene, recalling how he once believed you was as strong as he could possibly be, yet reality proved otherwise. Suddenly, an awakened fighter bursts in, loudly inquiring about the troll, but upon seeing everyone safe, he is taken aback. Mia also hurries to check on you. Outside, Tetsu excitedly pulls you aside, curious about his current level after his second awakening. Despite Yu's reluctant denial, Tetsu insists that it must be true since Yu had just killed a troll. You know something is off but indulges Tetsu's enthusiasm. When the system announces the measurement of the second level, Tetsu's eyes light up, but the result is level F. Afterwards, Jun demands you treat him to a meal, and you reminds him not to choose anything too expensive. The boy happily agrees. While relaxing, you suddenly thinks about Tetsu, guessing that the shock of level F was probably quite severe for him. The brothers head to the equipment store and forge. The blacksmith excitedly calls you by his old nickname, embarrassing him, but then he laughs and says what matters is that Yu is still alive. When asked why he came, Yu replies that he wants to buy a gift for June. Hearing that, Jun immediately boasts about how Yu used a bow to defeat a giant troll and saved everyone. The blacksmith's eyes light up, making you guess that he's smelling money and planning to sell him some expensive items. As Jun looks at some equipment, the blacksmith asks the boy if he's interested in them. Jun immediately affirms his dream of becoming a blacksmith himself, creating cool weapons and opening his own store. The blacksmith laughs loudly, praising the boy for his discerning eye and promises to teach him everything he knows if he awakens in the future. Jun is thrilled by this statement, while Yu silently thinks that the blacksmith seems to really value Jun. Observing that the weapon stock is larger than usual, he inquires about it. The blacksmith explains that he has brought in more equipment and not only sells homemade items. Meanwhile, Yu suddenly remembers Chris Roshan, a legendary sniper mentioned in the news. Chris is known for his ability to shoot down a bronze dragon with a single bullet and is a recruitment target of America's top guild, Caspian. Since childhood, Yu has idolized Chris and always wanted to become a hunter like him, despite currently being only level F and subject to ridicule. But Yu believes Chris inspires people not to give up on themselves. When Yu tries to touch a sword, a shock of electricity makes him startle. The system immediately announces that he cannot equip weapons that do not match his profession. This frustrates him because such a restriction had never occurred before. The blacksmith suddenly laughs loudly, praising Jun for his good eye for quality. Looking at the boy, Yu wonders what weapon he has chosen that earned such praise. When he finds out, he can only sigh. The weapon Jun has chosen is the hammer the blacksmith has been using since his awakening, which is not usually for sale, but they are an exception. Yu realizes that his uncle is just trying to make the story sound touching, while in reality, he wants to sell it at a steep price. Later, Tetsu comes to look for Yu to investigate his strange condition. Accordingly, Yu's magic index hasn't increased, but his skill index has shown an unusual improvement. Mia confirms that his magical power is only enough to take down an orc. At this point, Nishi also arrives. Tetsu is pleased to see Nishi and praises him for keeping the lower-level gates in the area safe. However, Nishi shows annoyance towards Yu and remarks that things would be better if you disappeared. Tetsu is about to defend Yu, but Nishi interrupts, reiterating his advice that Yu should take the hint and leave. In response to Nishi's coldness, Yu merely smiles faintly and declares that it's time for him to take action. He asserts that he will no longer stand in Nishi's way and also announces his intention to single-handedly take down all the trolls at the gate this time. Tetsu reassures Mia that this is only an E-rank portal and if there is any issue, someone will intervene. However, just then, a strange energy burst appears, causing Tetsu to panic. drop his computer, and yell out a warning that an enhancement of the portal is occurring. Inside the portal, Nishi is fighting a troll, but before he can deliver the finishing blow, a beam of light strikes and defeats the creature. Realizing that Yu is the one who intervened, he yells out in anger, feeling belittled. The other Awakeners are astonished, unable to believe that Yu could actually defeat a troll. Yu remains calm, thinking they will only complain about him hogging the limelight and not sharing the mana crystals. The system announces Yu has received 11 points, and he decides to keep accumulating points to prepare for the next level test. Last time he entered the mysterious shop, he discovered that it sold not only skill-enhancing items but many other things as well. At that moment, a pack of regular wolves appear, and everyone gets into position to fight. Yu opens the system panel, experimenting with enhancing his strength. After focusing to increase his strength status, he clearly feels the difference. He continues upgrading to level 10, then charges into the battle, surprising the other Awakeners. After the battle, Yu knows he cannot buy mana status, which makes him curious and decides to investigate further. At that moment, someone yells loudly, and turning around, Yu recognizes Nana, a former team member who is currently treating an injured person. He thinks to himself that he might need to teach her to be more careful. Nana then comes over and reminds him that with better mana, he could do more, also complimenting him for his good work today. He feels awkward as the victory wasn't related to mana, but he simply responds with a thanks to Nana. At this time, Nishi also announces the check of the number of mana crystals collected, and Yu quickly realizes Nishi is cheating but isn't too bothered as long as he has points. However, Nana immediately objects, unafraid to point out that Yu, who saved Nishi, shouldn't get so little. She angrily questions everyone about the unfairness, but Yu reassures that they can file a complaint after completing the mission. Before Nana can say more, Nishi reminds them that this is a battlefield, not a place for internal disputes. Annoyed, Yu and Nana remain silent and continue with the mission. As they enter the cave, Yu notices a significant increase in the points they are earning, possibly because the group is nearing the boss. Suddenly, he senses something approaching from behind. Nana, concerned, reminds Yu not to overexert himself just for the sake of gaining more mana. Upon sensing the anomaly, Yu immediately warns everyone to prepare for battle, but no one detects the danger. Some think he is overly excited after defeating the troll, while Yu wonders if he might be mistaken. Nishi, annoyed, mocks that if he was scared, he should take care of it himself instead of causing a commotion. But just as he finishes speaking, a monster suddenly attacks, striking Nishi and making him spit blood on the spot, shocking everyone. Hunter Nishi is stabbed in the neck with a knife. He falls and everyone rushes to check on him. Yamazaki is also very worried about his current condition and asks Kizaragi to treat him quickly. She tells Nishi not to leave him behind, and he agrees with her. Everyone is puzzled as to why Nishi was so easily defeated, and it seems to mark the end. At that moment, the monster approaches, and someone suddenly realizes it is an assassin goblin. They acknowledge that if it uses its invisibility skill, the consequences will be even greater. Though it's difficult to counter, it can't be used continuously. You suggest that everyone attack immediately before the monster can use its invisibility to escape. A calm person in the group begins to charge at the monster. The monster also launches a counterattack. Mizuki uses a spell from the flames to strike back, but unfortunately, the beast dodges it. She is disappointed because it is too fast, and Yu feels something is not normal. He suspects that the assassin goblin's invisibility skill should only be at E rank, yet a D rank hunter like Nishi couldn't react in time to avoid injury, not to mention its speed is incredibly fast. At that moment, the beast attacks with an unimaginably fast speed. Everyone is surprised, and Yu thinks he only has one chance to defeat it. Everyone with bows took their bows, and those with swords took their swords to attack. Yu uses a final method to try and eliminate it, hoping it will be successful. The beast is attacked from all sides and is forced up into the air. He aims right at the target. A stone archer directs. The monster is shot in the eye with an arrow. As the system announces his success in defeating the enemy and gaining 21 points, everyone stares in shock at the defeated beast, and Yu can hardly believe that it had tried to stop him just moments ago. He is convinced that the creature could not have been a mere F rank as his points continued to increase steadily, confirming his suspicion. Yu asks Kisaragi about Nishi's condition, and she is at a loss for words, indicating the severity of the situation. Suddenly, Nishi's body begins to deform. She informs them that although the wound is healed, the knife was poisoned, which shocks everyone. Regretting her lack of detoxification skills to save Nishi, Kisaragi covers him with stones. The sight of the stone-covered Nishi deeply saddens everyone. Yu then advises everyone to stay calm as the ordeal is over. A young man tears up, mourning that Nishi, the strongest among them, was defeated and fears that if they continue, they will all be destroyed. Some suggest retreating while it's still possible, and others agree that they should return to the safe entrance. Yu speaks up, stating that going back is not a safe option, which visibly shakes everyone. He confesses his desire to return and call for reinforcements but doubts they can leave the portal, which bewilders someone who asks what he means. Yu points out that everyone must have realized Nishi wasn't easy to defeat, and some start to recognize that the current situation is dire. He continues to explain about the portal enhancement phenomenon, where the magic within the portal is amplified and even E-rank monsters inside become stronger than ever. He notes that during this phenomenon, no one can enter or exit the portal until everything ends, unless they defeat the boss before the whole group is annihilated. This revelation leaves everyone in fear, with someone yelling out in disbelief. A man in a red shirt skeptically remarks that Yu has never seen a portal enhancement to know it so well, suggesting that if the portal is still open, they can indeed go back. A man in a blue shirt counters, mentioning his strained relationship with Nishi, with another agreeing, implying that Yu might be intentionally dragging them all down. Amidst the tension, others accuse Yu of being responsible for Nishi's death, causing a stir among the group. A young man, however, sees reason in Yu's words and defends him, questioning whether people still believe someone who hasn't managed to defeat a troll until now, and accuses the young man of changing sides when convenient. Those dissenting decide to turn back, mocking those who choose to stay as having a death wish. Another person inquires about their safety from Yu. Amidst echoing screams and confusion about the entity they encountered, Yu is frustrated because the group isn't heeding his advice. The group is shocked by the unfolding scene. At this point, Yu asks who else wants to turn back. A broadcast announcement then informs about the status of the portal enhancement, stating that this could have been avoided with thorough initial investigation, and urges everyone to remain calm as the association is working to grasp the full situation. Questions abound, but no clear answers are available. Sekitetsu, the head of the room, and others are hopeful since Hunter Nishi would normally handle things smoothly, and even Yu, who recently started defeating E-rank monsters, has a high chance of success. He asks Kondo Miya, the deputy leader of the Hunter Association's Team 2, about the status and requests for D and C-rank hunters' assistance. She indicates they can summon a C-rank hunter, luckily close by, named Mutu Kasako. He's annoyed she didn't refer to him as Great Mutu, which she apologetically corrects. Rumors have been circulating about him, such as Great Mutu, the Grand Swordsman, and his recent recruitment by a major guild. He inquires about the survival chances inside the portal, and upon reviewing the information, given that Nishi was the team leader and considering it was initially an E-rank portal, the survival probability remains favorable. He is curious if he was inside, surprised that he knows Hunter Yu. He responds frankly and acknowledges knowing more than expected. Meanwhile, Yu on the other side doubts whether the boss is actually from the dungeon. The group, fearful, questions if they really can handle it. Yu coldly replies that there is no other way but to win. With a resolute shout, and must defeat it, the dungeon's boss. Everyone was dumbfounded as a monster appeared. It was known to be the ruler of this dungeon, called Ho-Sun Kwai. Usually, encountering it wasn't life-threatening, but this time was different. Nana, Akira, and Yu were horrified by the monster's increased ferocity, strengthened significantly by the enhancement of the gate. The beast roared towards the intruders. Yu instructed everyone to quickly move to the right side. The fire-breathing monster began its attack on those present. It destroyed everything with each strike. Fortunately, they escaped to a nearby rock, and thanks to Yu, they were safe. They gathered to plan their next move. Yu warned everyone to be careful, as even a single hit from the monster could be fatal. They were discussing its weakness, pointing out that after attacking, the monster's head would retreat into its shell, concluding that the real vulnerability was at the base of its shell. They were considering its heart and aiming for it. The discussion showed some progress. Meanwhile, a group of hobgoblins was approaching from behind. Yu volunteered to handle the boss and asked others to deal with the hobgoblins, but Akira feared he couldn't defeat it alone. He asked Akira if he could dodge his breath, to which Akira confidently affirmed he could handle the hobgoblins. Then they started to split up for action. With positions set, he tried his bow and arrow on the monster. In attack position, Yu used a slingshot to fire stone arrows. 3 arrows hit its back. He continued to exert force, firing stone arrows continuously. The monster took all the hits and fell with a roar. Nana watched him act to defeat the beast, and Yu was sure he would focus his attacks on a single spot. She began to ask Yu how he could stay so calm. She was still in shock from Nishi's death and questioned what the dungeon did to people, or if he was someone special. He paused for a moment, and a disappointed Nana asked if she could ever be as calm as him with more experience. He cheerfully responded that he wasn't really sure about being calm. It was just a passive skill of Yu. He instructed her to step back to avoid danger, acknowledging that he was indeed an odd person. Yu quickly returned to alertness to monitor the situation. The monster began its attack, emitting a large flame. Yu swiftly summoned the system, using speed forms to combat the beast, reaching a speed of 20 points. He then rapidly attacked the monster with his ultimate stone arrow technique. The battle was intense. Rocks began to fall, and others noticed this. These rocks fell rapidly towards them. He didn't have time to aim at each one. His strength increased by 10 points, and he began to aim and shoot stone arrow. The rock shattered, a sign of success. The process of achieving calm remained unshaken, 2/3 complete, needing just one more instance to finish the achievement. He was deep in thought and realized it was nearly there, coupled with anger. Definitely the moment, just one more strike. A white light flashed behind him, and at that moment, he also realized and cursed in frustration. You reached into his pouch for more ammo, but unfortunately, he had run out long ago. The monster was getting closer to him. At this time, Yu was really worried about what to do. The monster was also extremely angry. He was confused about how to resolve this situation. This was the moment you needed to act decisively with absolute effectiveness to end it. Just one more strike was needed for a real victory. Elsewhere, others were also fighting the demons. At this time, Kimura Yu wondered if he had asked too much for a normal life, thinking he had finally escaped the abyss. The monster began to approach him. But fortunately, Yu's spirit stabilized again, and he told himself he would not die like this. At least he would take the monster down with him. The shop window. The store was currently locked. Listen right. Yu boldly yelled, summoning the shop window. He then asked if everything could be done right. The store didn't care what his plan was or why he was doing this. Angrily, he demanded just to give him one bullet. Just one was more than enough. The demons and beasts at that moment were also frightened by Yu's rage this time. The title of Indomitable Will was also awarded. The achievement of running out of ammo was completed. The final ammo store was unlocked, and boom, he could now purchase. The store asked if he wanted to buy explosive bullets worth 1,000 points, to which he agreed. This bullet was heavier than the usual lead bullets, and the final purchase was completed. Yu was reassured because he had bought strength stats, so there were no issues. With an angry face determined to defeat the evil spirit, just this much, a single blow to finish it off. He thought to himself that he had already created a vulnerability. If he missed, everyone would be doomed. This was also Yu's last chance. He aimed precisely at the shell of the demon's back. Everyone was anxiously waiting. A bright light emanated. Followed by a booming sound, the bullet hit the monster's shell. A large explosion occurred. A huge gate was stabilizing, the vibrations also calming down, although the reinforcement of the stone gate may not have completely ceased. Reporters and editors were ready with their cameras to start filming. Kondomiya turned back and told the hunters behind her that as soon as the door fully opened, they must be ready to enter immediately. Strange sounds were emitting from the gate area, making everyone present feel uneasy. When the door was fully opened, hunters emerged from inside. Some were injured, but fortunately, they were safe. Reporters on the scene became agitated, eager to approach them. Reporters incessantly asked questions like how they had managed to survive, whether they had defeated the boss, and despite some shouting that the hunters needed rest and to ask no further, the reporters showed no intention of relenting. However, Tetsu and Mia were still worried about the whereabouts of the hunter niche. As security guards, there stood blocking the hunters, trying to keep them away from the circling reporters. They stood outside, looking into the crowd, prepared mentally but unable to believe this was really happening. Suddenly, a voice sounded as if seeing something. Finally, two hunters emerged from the gate. Yu was carrying Nana on his shoulders. Thankfully, both were safe. Mia and Tetsu, seeing Yu, were relieved while Kosaku reacted differently. He ran up and placed his hand on Yu's shoulder. He had thought Yu was dead in there. But Yu looked at Kosaku strangely as if he did not recognize him. Hearing this, Kosaku stood frozen for a few seconds. Kosaku, tearfully upset, reproached Yu for possibly forgetting him. But within a few seconds, Yu remembered thinking Kosaku was in Osaka. After hearing this, Kosaku crossed his arms and chuckled mischievously, saying that the Yomi group had recognized his talents and brought Kosaku here, which surprised Yu. Handing Nana to Mia, Kosaku draped an arm around Yu, saying he almost died without seeing him one last time, which would not have been right. Seeing Kosaku being a bit too excessive, Tetsu reminded Kosaku to let Yu rest since he had just returned, and Kosaku immediately asked if even though that gate was a reinforced one, it was still just level E, right? After that, he sweated as he heard him say that 10 years ago he was only level F, but now you must have reached at least level C or B. Tetsu and Mia hesitated and looked at each other. Suddenly, Kosaku grabbed Yu's shoulder, unable to believe that he had defeated the boss alone at level F. Feeling overly praised, he explained that it was only possible because he had teammates behind him protecting him. He only went crazy because he had accomplished what even a level D 2-star hunter couldn't. She looked back and felt everyone was foolish for underestimating level F, but he beside her felt the two of them were really close. He still placed his hand on his shoulder because he was glad he was still alive. He hadn't originally planned to come, but when he saw his name on the list, he came right away. Unfortunately, his words reached her ears and Mia became furious. She exploded in anger, accusing him of planning to ignore it. Seeing the situation deteriorate, Kosaku quickly said it was just the way he spoke and excused himself, saying he had urgent matters to attend to. As he ran, he turned his head back and smiled at him, telling you to keep in touch. Watching the young man leave, Tetsu thought Kosaku really liked taking risks, while Mia felt Kosaku was quite different from before. They still had to investigate further. Fortunately, this time there were not many injuries. Turning back to you, Tetsu said getting out was a miracle. He advised him to go home and rest. She said she would drive him home, leaving you with nothing to say but thanks. Meo went to get the car and told you to wait a moment. Now alone there, he quietly looked up at the sky. Watching the leaves drift across the sky, you hoped his friend Nishi could rest in peace. The next day at his place, he received breaking news. You sat eating breakfast, watching the media cover yesterday's event. You then opened the system to check. Yesterday, he had used too many points. You wanted to enter another dungeon soon, but couldn't leave because of the reporters. Suddenly, the system issued a mission, requiring you to use only a crystal sword to defeat monsters of level F or higher, with a reward after completion. But you probably couldn't refuse because yesterday he had agreed himself. So he sighed and decided to give it a try. The reward this time was quite special, a new skill that made you very excited. Ignoring the reporters, he wanted to enter as many dungeons as possible. However, Yu's phone displayed that he did not have sufficient rank to register for Gate E. He felt disheartened as the enhancement phenomenon caused the association to temporarily suspend everything. Suddenly, a message from Yoshiyuki came in, informing him that the association had just sent an unexpected amount of money. Yu was happy to hear this, but then suddenly remembered something important. He scolded himself for forgetting, then closed his eyes to focus and use his sensory skills. Gradually, a high-rise building appeared in his vision, followed by scenes above the sidewalk. Finally, he found what he was looking for. His phone vibrated on the table due to a notification. She picked up the phone and realized it was from him. She spit out the water she was drinking in surprise. A colleague nearby jumped and asked Mia what was wrong. She looked at her phone, her face turning pale. At that moment, he opened the door and entered a place resembling a warehouse. The dust made you uncomfortable, likely because it had been unused for a long time. As expected, his phone displayed that no level F gate was found in the area, but in front of him was a level F gate that the association had not detected. You stepped into it alone. In front of you now was a pile of rubble and ruin. He stood with his arms crossed, wondering how a temple that looked like something out of Greek mythology ended up in a level F area, confirming to himself that he was indeed level F. Suddenly, something caught his attention. An arrow coming from nowhere almost hit him. You picked up his bow, trying to defend himself. The owners of these sharp arrows were gradually revealing themselves as a group of goblin archers. He wasn't sure how many goblins were there, but if he handled it well, he could at least complete a preliminary mission. You clenched his teeth, directing his stone bow towards them. Each time he defeated an opponent, he earned 2 points. However, you realized he couldn't deal with each one individually to confirm this, so he needed to keep shooting continuously. In desperation, he pulled his bow strongly. Just as you thought everything would be fine if it continued like this, arrows came flying from both sides. He had to spend points to buy speed. The goblins were surprised to see you move so quickly. He smiled, weapon in hand. Now it was Yu's turn to show off. The goblins, hearing this, immediately became anxious and fearful. Soon, the screams of the green goblins echoed through the sky. Yu had defeated his opponents, but the system announced that one was still missing. He sat pondering, wondering if there was really only one left. You yawned repeatedly, thinking how perfect this moment would be for a boss, but you didn't feel any strong magic nearby. Suddenly, you turned and noticed a door handle. It looked just like a boss room. He walked over, wanting to touch it, having defeated the goblins and feeling no other magic. You touched it. A strange sensation immediately coursed through his body. Seeing a set of armor in the corner, you knew it was level D. He hesitated, then looked at the mission, still lacking one target. The number was 99 out of 100, seemingly a limit. At that moment, outside the gate, Mia had measured the gate's level and was gathering hunters. But her subordinate, looking at the readings on his device, turned pale. He asked Mia if the device was malfunctioning, to which she asked if it was really level F. The man hesitated and then loudly read that it was level E, 3 stars, causing Mia to be astonished. But then he laughed out loud, thinking that even though Yu had become stronger recently, he probably didn't have the courage. And she also commented that he usually didn't act like that. Suddenly, she became thoughtful, wondering about Yu's recent actions. By then, Yu had approached the level D boss, and it was unpredictable what he would do next. Yu thought to himself that if he had come this far and then ran away, it would be as if he were handing over his prey to another hunter, having made a great effort to find this gate. Immediately after, the level D monster with iron armor opened its eyes and became active. Facing it was not without fear, as it was extremely tough, with armor that repelled attacks and formidable strength, even famously known as a challenging boss for level E teams. It suddenly roared, startling him. Swift as the wind, it grabbed his weapon and charged, reminding you to stay vigilant. He tried to dodge. Usually there would be someone to take the blows and attract his attention, but unfortunately, Yu was alone. He had to try to seize the moment, fighting with what he had. You quickly aimed at the gaps in the armor as it moved and shot. The stone soared into its body. It roared back and glared at you. Facing him, it drew its weapon, intending to strike him. You felt dodging it was easy, but he decided to try, getting into position to shoot. Suddenly, the hand holding the projectile began to smoke. The monster, seeing you off guard, made its move, but fortunately, he was agile. At this moment, you discovered its weakness. He used all his strength to pull his bow. His hand, due to friction with the bow, turned black. Just as it was about to hit you, he stood still in astonishment. His hand became stiff, suddenly unable to move, but he still tried to run away. You looked at his scraped shoulder and sighed, thinking it was a close call. Watching it strike ferociously, you realized the severity of the situation and thought you should retreat. You looked at his fingers, feeling something was wrong. They were stiff and immobile, making him wonder if it was a side effect of the item he had purchased. You looked at the mission board, thinking it might indeed be the cause. You pondered why they kept making him use the same move over and over, reasoning that if they wanted his fingers to adapt to the skill, it made sense. His fingers trembled, and trying to finish everything in one day would be too much for them. The creature picked up its heavy weapon from the ground. Looking at his hand, you told himself he would find his solution later, but the pressing matter was to survive first. It stood straight, ready to continue the fight. He had 3 fingers left and decided to use them all, knowing that if he let go, it would be the end. Once again, the creature did not hesitate to charge at you. Seeing this, he also charged forward, seizing what he saw as his only chance. You and the creature collided head-on. He ducked, dodging a blow from the level D monster. This action caused you to slide and land on his knees. At that moment, he extended his weapon. You aimed at the creature's critical weak point under its chin, preparing to deliver the finishing blow. The moment arrived, and his hand holding the projectile was ready to release. The monster showed a clear look of astonishment at this tactic. Immediately after, the system updated, announcing that you had completed the preliminary mission. The creature was shot directly through the neck by him. You then received a new skill to detect weaknesses. When you shot down the monster, its blood splattered everywhere. He gritted his teeth as he watched it. Finally, the monster fell to the ground, surprising you. He sat down, hardly believing that he had actually defeated the boss. Suddenly, a notification sound diverted his attention. The system had granted him a new skill. After 10 years, you finally acquired the skill to detect an opponent's weakness, applicable to anyone harboring hostile intentions against him. He looked at his fingers, which had started moving again, and realized he should avoid overexerting himself from now on. Yu's next mission was to defeat over 100 E-rank magicians using only his Crystal Stone Fist, with the reward being a level 3 Crystal Stone Fist and an upgrade unlocking the Mastery of Friction. He was determined to ensure that he would not lose his hand mobility like today ever again. Outside, Mia was fretting over whether the portal, if it was E-ranked with 3 stars, might contain a D-ranked monster. As she was about to summon help, a hand emerged from the portal, and you poked his head out and smiled at her. Her subordinate, upon seeing him, almost fainted from fear, but you was pleased and asked Mia if the portal was unregistered, which it indeed was. As she was about to speak, you mentioned that he had encountered a D-ranked monster inside and thought he was done for. Hearing this, Mia clenched her teeth as you continued, saying he had targeted its weak point, still in disbelief that he had managed to do so. Mia exclaimed that now was not the time for such discussions, expressing her worries about his safety. After a lengthy scolding, she pointed out that you had indeed grown stronger recently, but was still unstable, and they didn't even know his current level. You then wondered if he could use his new power to detect weaknesses on her, as she was visibly angry. She held her head, asking what he was planning to do, stating that it would be difficult to resolve if he was uncooperative. She continued to scold him, but he just stood there, listening for formality's sake. Elsewhere, a report on the investigation of the enhancement gate was being discussed. It noted that Hunter Yu had defeated the Fire Mountain Demon in its enhanced state. Kajidora acknowledged Yu's calm leadership of the group even after the death of Hunter Nishi. Therefore, although Yu was currently ranked F, it was believed he could be at rank E or higher. Tetsu then asked whether they should consider making an exception to remove rank restrictions for him this time. Picking up a piece of paper from the table, he noted that despite being the lowest rank, Yu had managed to defeat a high-level magical monster. This prompted him to ponder how to logically explain this anomaly. He then articulated his analysis, stating that the only change was Yu's skill level, which, although primarily offensive, had somehow been enhanced, improving his strength. However, he also cautioned that if Yu ran out of mana and could no longer use his skills, it might become a liability, potentially endangering the whole team. He suggested that if the team were to suffer because of Yu, it would be a different scenario. Kajitora, turning away, commented that if Yu could defeat a C-rank monster, things would indeed be different. Still, he later paused to ask Yu if he had finally shown his potential. Meanwhile, at his residence, Yu lay pondering today's events, attributing Mia's anger to her excessive worries. Looking at the surrender button on his system, he realized he couldn't turn back anymore. He needed to push harder. The presence of the daily window with you remained a mystery, and he didn't know when it would disappear, possibly marking his last chance, which he thought might finally be given to someone like him, someone unable to develop magical power. Suddenly, he remembered someone patting his head and saying nothing is impossible to overcome with a bow. He sat up, looking at his phone. You needed to become stronger, even if it was beyond the control of the guild. He made a call and asked the person on the other end which committee they were on. Kusaku immediately replied that it was Yomi, now frequently appearing in the news and on television. Yu contemplated the name Yomi, which he had heard frequently lately. Although not part of the original 4 guilds, it was often mentioned in the headlines. Kusaku then confirmed whether Yu wanted to join the guild, but Yu replied that he was not calling for that reason. Instead, he needed a favor. After discussing several matters, they came to an agreement. Once the call ended, Yu silently apologized to him, thinking that being there with Kusaku, a C rank, shouldn't be too dangerous. He slammed the phone down on the table, wondering if trying harder and becoming stronger could bring him closer to being on par with Chris Roshan. As you walked down the street while on the phone, he talked about transferring the money he had earned to his director, who was astonished that you had risked his life to earn it yet still send it to them. You cheerfully mentioned that it was his way of showing gratitude. Suddenly, something rushed towards him. He prepared to hang up the phone. The person sprinted towards you, hugged him, and joyfully apologized for making him wait. You turned to ask if Kusaku had brought what he had asked for. Kusaku then produced a card which would allow you to enter the Academy's dungeon with them. At the Academy's dungeon, things were chaotic, unlike a standard portal. This was a unique, large dungeon without a boss. Originally, famous hunters had tried to defeat the boss and close the portal, but since there was no boss, the dungeon remained explosively active. Therefore, some major guilds now managed it. Only members with permission could enter, so Kusaku's arrangement allowed you to enter without facing the restrictions typically imposed by the guild. This meant he wouldn't attract attention, which you worried about as the portal never closed, continuously producing magical creatures. This dungeon, nowadays considered a leisurely spot by many, had a large gate with guards at the front. You held his breath as they checked the permissions. Kusaku jokingly introduced you as his assistant, leaving you unsure whether he was serious or joking. Finally, they were verified and allowed through. You followed Kusaku inside, marveling as he stepped into what seemed like a new world. A person is grabbed by the collar, looking as if they've just been beaten up. Izzo, seeing that he only has 100 low-grade magic stones in his hand, becomes furious. Before he can do anything to the other person, one of his subordinates mentions there's a notification. Izzo curses and throws the person to the ground. He pulls out his phone and learns it's from the school's dungeon. They talk boisterously, likely not a message from the higher-ups, but rather a prey that has delivered itself to them. They hide behind a nearby bush to ambush. They quickly notice a man walking beside them. Annoyed by the sight, as Kusaku is always celebrated as an exceptional rookie, they decide to go and make some quick money. He smiles craftily, planning to force the young man to pay him. Meanwhile, Kusaku enters the gate with you, surprised by the vastness of the place. Kusaku looks at you with bright eyes, thinking there must be many monsters here too. Just then, he senses something, as monsters begin to appear. A huge beast resembling a dragon stands imposingly before them. You sees this as the perfect opportunity to test a new technique he discovered for finding weak spots. He immediately uses it and identifies its weak spot on the left chest. Without hesitation, he takes his slingshot and aims. He puts all his strength into this crucial shot. The projectile from the slingshot flies straight into the monster's weak spot. After defeating it, you gains 2 points, not expecting that this skill would activate on its own. Kusaku, standing by, is impressed, noting that you, who is only rank F, has taken down a rank E monster. According to his plan, the number of monsters continues to increase. Suddenly, he tells you to look at something. Rank D monsters have started to arrive. Now it's his turn to shine. Kusaku's sword glows brightly. He smiles confidently. The monsters, seeing this, are frightened. Kusaku grins triumphantly and asks them whom they are bearing their fangs at. He raises his sword, ready to strike, declaring himself the outstanding rookie of Yomi. Finally, he swings his sword, scattering the monsters. Yu, standing aside, admits that Kusaku really suits the role of a swordsman. At that moment, Kusaku pauses. A large wolf, likely the leader of the pack, stands before him. It immediately bared its teeth at Kusaku, but he was not afraid. Instead, he found the situation intriguing. From a distance, you reminded him that they still didn't know the creature's rank. Seeing Kusaku charge into battle without thought, you remarked that Kusaku wasn't thinking at all. After a while, Kusaku looked at him uncomfortably, confusing you. Kusaku then criticized you for daring to steal his glory. You could only laugh, finding it hard to resist acting when the weakness was so apparent. More importantly, at this moment, the numbers on the screen were what mattered to you. His current count of defeated monsters had reached 100 out of 100. Then you took out money to upgrade his magical core guide, feeling a distinct change. His magical power also concentrated at a completely new level. Now you wanted to check the rewards from the mission, but for some reason he felt someone was watching them and you didn't know who. He decided he would act when the opportunity arose. On the way, you made an excuse about needing to use the restroom to Kaosaku. As for Kaosaku, he was still sulking at you, thinking that you always took the best parts for himself. Suddenly, something changed Kaosaku's expression. They approached and greeted Izzo casually. Izzo immediately asked whether Kaosaku's gatekeeper had died yet, but unfortunately, Yu was just in the restroom. At this moment, Izzo made a proposal, wanting Kusaku to call him Great Mutu. He then mentioned how recently Kaosaku had been making waves as an exceptional rookie. Suddenly, from beneath the ground, branches shot up and caught Kusaku's legs. His eyes clearly showed his astonishment, even more so when the branches lifted him up. Thorns tightly wrapped around his legs, and he was asked to help Izzo's group as it was something the guild should do. The thorns tightened, causing him pain, and Izzo assured him not to worry, saying he would tell the guild that Kusaku had been killed by a monster. Kusaku struggled, asking Izzo to let him go, but this only made Izzo's smile even more smug. Suddenly, one of Izzo's subordinates shouted, causing him to turn around. You appeared just in time. Kusaku asked where you had been all this time. You turned and yelled at those juvenile delinquents, demanding they untie Kusaku and leave immediately. So they obediently followed. Seeing their sharp teeth, they wondered if they were in danger. A monster resembling an earthworm surged up from the ground. He looked pale, drained of all blood. Both he and the other were gasped, shouting to run quickly. A beast resembling an earthworm unexpectedly emerged from the ground. Everyone could not help but show their astonishment. Izzo's face turned pale green instantly. The monster, with its sharp teeth, lunged at them. This allowed Kaosaku to finally escape the sad fate of being trapped by the trees. He landed and let out a sigh of relief. At that moment, he was terrified and called out Kaosaku's name. The monster quickly closed in on him. He screamed for everyone to run away, warning that the creature's mouth was filled with countless teeth. Kusaku wanted to know what it was, but you advised him to run if he didn't want to die. Then, seeing the creature wriggling everywhere, Kusaku said it was his chance, but you replied that given Kaosaku's sensory rating of only 7, it was highly risky. You then revealed that it was a Class A monster. Kusaku wondered why there was a Class A monster there, to which you responded that he didn't know. He had been planning to attack some people from the shadows when this monster appeared. The only thing you was certain of was that the creature would not forgive anyone who entered its territory. Therefore, you told Kusaku to immediately leave its territory. Suddenly, Kusaku told him to hold on tight. Immediately after, you found himself lying on Kaosaku's shoulder, asking him if he was ready. You felt this was too much, but Kusaku reminded him to hold on. Right after, Kusaku jumped, landing firmly on the ground. He ran very fast, which surprised you, but for Kaosaku, it was just routine. You thought this was Kusaku's specialty, and with such speed, they could definitely escape the deadly trap. However, the creature kept pursuing them, causing you to take back his words. Even with Kaosaku's efforts, shaking off this worm was very difficult. You took the opportunity to open the item system and spent 1,000 points to buy explosive bullets, thinking that money would be meaningless if they died. He loaded the bullet into the slingshot, reminding himself to stay calm. You waited for the right moment for the monster to expose itself. Very soon, he discovered its weak spot. From his position on Kaosaku's shoulder, he aimed the explosive bullet directly at the monster. The bullet flew straight into it, causing everything in front of them to explode. Finally, they escaped from the dungeon. A man with a somewhat surprised expression was seen as Kusaku helped you out of the gate. Seeing him slump to the ground, a man immediately inquired after his well-being. The man was incessantly worried, wondering why 3 people had entered but only 2 came out. At that point, you, on the verge of tears, explained that the other 2 had held off the monster to allow him and Kaosaku to escape. However, the truth was that their escape was only possible thanks to his skill level. Despite this, they both agreed never to enter such dungeons again, as they had nearly died. You pointed out that it was peculiar that 3 high-level hunters had perished while he and Kaosaku, both low-level hunters, had survived. This could raise suspicions to an outsider. Thus, before leaving the gate, he suggested to Kaosaku that they should align their story. Hearing this, Kusaku looked troubled, reminding you that people had died in there, questioning how you could not see the wrong in it. You looked distressed and retorted that those people had also intended to kill Kaosaku, which made Kaosaku agree to align the story. Now outside the gate, you utilized his acting skills to mourn the death of their companions, while Kusaku stood by silently. After the man saw them leave, he made a phone call, clearly indicating that it had been a challenging ordeal, even for the gatekeeper. At that moment, Kusaku reminded you about the phone. The caller was Mia, who reported new information about the portal's restrictions. However, due to intense protests from various councils, the restrictions had not been fully lifted yet, although there were temporary measures and some conditions attached. After thanking Mia, you hung up with Kusaku curiously behind him. Yu then explained to Kasaku, who was eager to know more about the conditions. Pointing at him, Yu mentioned the need for a frontline tank to absorb and block attacks, and then pointing at himself, he said there needed to be a long-range attacker to provide support from behind. In other words, they needed to form a team of at least 3 people, with an average level that met approved standards. Kusaku then questioned Yu's calculations, noting that their team only had 2 members. Actually, he was thinking of someone very suitable who was at the bedside of a patient. At that moment, Nana was still lying there with her eyes closed. She suddenly opened her eyes, completely unaware of her surroundings. Beside her bed, he was casually peeling an apple and greeted Nana. On seeing Yu, Nana screamed, echoing throughout the hospital. Hisashi wanted to smoke a cigarette, but his lighter wouldn't work. He then asked the man next to him for a light, who hesitated, fearing Hisashi would get burned like the last time. Despite this, the man lit Hisashi's cigarette, causing Hisashi to cry out due to the heat. The cigarette quickly burned to ashes, and it was also the last one he had. The man offered Hisashi one of his cigarettes, but Hisashi refused, claiming they were not good. The scene then shifts to Hisashi's room, where he sits at his desk, disheartened and complaining about the reports. Suddenly, a piece of information catches Hisashi's eye. 3 members of the Yomi Guild had died in the dungeon. Upon reading the cause of their deaths, Hisashi was even more shocked. He recalled Izao and felt that he truly lacked compassion. He doubted that someone who always put his own interests first would sacrifice himself for new recruits. Initially, Hisashi thought he was just a muscle-brained individual, but it turned out he was quite cunning. Hisashi called back the young man from earlier, ordering a detailed investigation and report on all the records of entries and exits to and from the dungeon before and after the incident, as they needed to suppress any disruptive activities by the Yomi Guild. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Nana sat up abruptly and asked Yu why he was there. He replied that it was natural for teammates who had fought together to visit each other. Yu then admitted he had a few things he wanted to discuss with Nana. They moved outside the hospital and sitting on a bench, Yu explained the situation to Nana. He directly expressed his desire for Nana to join his team, convincing her that he couldn't think of anyone else but her. He also mentioned that Nana could be a healer, which was his sincere belief. Nana's expression then changed to a mix of sadness and contemplation, saying she would think about it. After a long pause, she agreed to join. However, as Nana remembered Yu's belief in her ability to heal, she hesitated, wondering if he really thought she was a healer. The system window displayed 2 states for her. She was indeed a healer, but of the enhancer type, which often wasn't as respected as true healers. Nana worried that Yu would find out about her real profession, as most people did not value enhancers, though they also belonged to the healer category. Nana wished she could use her unique skills as an enhancer, but now was not the time to think about that. Today was Nana's first day off after a busy week, and she wanted to enjoy it. She couldn't help but feel anxious, as it was her first time entering a level C portal, and she had no idea what to expect. Nana chewed her food, filled with concern about whether she would be helpful or not and whether his attacks would be effective in a level C portal. When she checked Yu's profile, she only saw pictures of rubber slingshots. Yu had mentioned he would contact her. Just as she finished speaking, her phone received a notification. She was surprised to see the message on her screen and accidentally pressed the confirm button, though she clearly needed some rest. The message was an apology for disturbing her and thanks for agreeing to join. Yu said he would send the location of the level C portal, and she just needed to arrive on time. He thought that should be sufficient, but felt that merely increasing the loot share might not be enough to entice Nana to join his team without offering her any other benefits. Based on Yu's perception of Nana, she must at least be a level C as a healer. That means she's in demand, so he planned to do something to show his sincerity. Yu then messaged asking if she'd like to eat anything, offering to treat her after they finished. Nana thought about a meal with just the 2 of them. Suddenly, her younger brother burst in, excited to see her back. Seeing Nana's reaction, her brother couldn't help but be puzzled, considering she had barely escaped death and had already received too many shocks that day. He peeked at her phone and teased her, asking if it was her boyfriend, which Nana quickly denied. He then mentioned the main topic was their father calling her. He had asked Nana to quit her dangerous job as a hunter and join his company instead. He would support her if she wanted to pursue a different career, indicating that though he spoke little, he cared a lot for her. Nana's father was worried she might end up like her mother, but she still didn't want to give up. Her brother, knowing this, just reminded her to take care of her health before leaving. Nana's eyes glistened with sadness as she remembered her mother. She recalled her mother standing before a vast sea of flames. Despite being warned, her mother had chosen to go in. And then the image of him appeared in her mind too, leaving her shocked. Reflecting on how Yu had stood up to fight alone for everyone, Nana felt that underestimating herself would be disrespectful to him, especially since he had invited her to join. She sat lost in thought for a while, telling herself that she too could make a difference. Looking at the message again, she hoped her mother would be cheering her on. As she went to meet him, from a distance Yu saw Nana and waved at her. Kusaku, standing next to Yu, was surprised and asked if she was the girl. Looking at Nana, Kusaku couldn't remember when you had started associating with such a beauty. You once again expressed his gratitude to her, but Nana replied that she was the one who should be thankful. Afterwards, they chatted happily, unaware that they were being watched. The observer then took out his phone and reported to Hisashi about them, promising to continue monitoring their activities. Kusaku whistled at you to get his attention. He inquired indirectly if you had been accompanying a great beauty since when. You glanced at him and mentioned that Nana was a level C therapist, thinking she might be able to help the team. But Kusaku said that wasn't the issue, to which you replied that Nana wasn't like that. Suddenly, they overheard chatter about her being seen at a level E gate the day before. This was followed by evaluative glances regarding his rank. The therapist seemed fine, and according to the group, Kusaku, described by them as a level C redhead, should leave the team due to his weakness. They commented that you relied on his teammates, which he found annoying, but it wasn't his concern. His attention was drawn to a corner where someone had been watching him. You wondered who had sent that person there, questioning if they were just a level C or involved in the incident from the previous day. The whole association wouldn't follow them deep into the gate, so you and his teammates left. What he needed to focus on now was conquering the gate. They stepped through the gate. Contrary to Kazaku's expectations, they hadn't encountered any monsters yet. Seeing her puzzled, Kusaku chuckled and expressed a desire to hear about any strong enemies. Nana, slightly blushing, felt somewhat useless despite her buffs. Leading the way, Ken suddenly called a halt. He was a level B and sensed something ahead. Behind him, you quietly assessed Ken, appreciating the team captain's good instincts. A horde of demons appeared, and Ken directed everyone to battle positions. Holding a bow, he felt this truly was the sensation of a level C gate. Kusaku, wielding a sword, insisted on taking the front line, asking the support team to be ready. Someone shouted to support correctly, which confused her. The fierce demons attacked. Ken focused on his strength. He struck a demon and urged spreading out as much as possible, each to counter 5 at a time. You also aimed and shot. Conveniently, another demon was charging at him. Yu's detection of weaknesses was activated. He kept aiming and shooting at them. Kusaku on his side attacked with his melee weapon, swiftly slicing them into pieces. During a moment of distraction, a demon approached Kusaku, who was completely unaware. He felt disoriented, not understanding why it suddenly got dark. Right after, the demon beast finished Kusaku off. At that moment, Nana immediately used her healing abilities on him. Kusaku thanked her, but soon after he called her over for help again. The other hunters outside were dumbfounded watching their group fight. The other hunters wondered who said there was a level F in that team. After finishing, he reminded everyone for future occasions, not forgetting to mockingly say this time it was just his luck. But you didn't care, he wanted to use points to obtain something for the boss fight. Just then, she asked you what had happened here. It had been a week since the enhanced gate appeared, wondering why she had been hospitalized for so long. At that moment, he stammered as he couldn't think of an excuse. Then he truthfully revealed about you that he didn't rely on magic power, but on upgrading his skills, which made him turn pale. Nana was taken aback, while you dismissed Kusaku's nonsense. He forced a laugh, reassuring her it wasn't important, and asked Nana to keep a secret for him. After checking, they continued on their way, with you carefully reminding everyone about the upcoming boss fight. The scene shifts to inside the cave. You started to feel nervous, hoping it wasn't a two-headed demon. The good news was you didn't encounter a two-headed monster. The bad news was he faced an armored demon. Even the shield bearers in the team weren't sure they could withstand it. The chance of encountering such a creature was very rare. They would attack anyone, even its own kind. Knowing a level C shield couldn't withstand it and it wouldn't be a meaningless sacrifice, you had no other choice. He would maximize the use of his bow. The chained demon turned and people around discussed Yu's recklessness. Yu's shot hit it. The beast's essence flew out. The surrounding people were astonished. Yu then pulled out an explosive bullet. If it wasn't enough, he would use all of his points to target its weakness. Nana enhanced his skills right after. You received the effect from her. You appeared surprised, not expecting she could do that, which caused him to misfire. Yu's eyes widened, realizing his mistake. His hands were shaking, and Yu had misaligned his target. The explosive bullet hit the demon's chest, but it was still defeated before Yu's complete astonishment. With the strength from Nana, he received 3,000 points. The system announced that the enemy had been defeated, and the reward of 3,000 points was granted. The giant monster disappeared in a blink. Surprised, Yu looked at Nana, approached her, causing her to panic slightly and respond nervously. Internally, Nana worried whether she had done something unnecessary that might have annoyed Yu. Contrary to her thoughts, Yu unexpectedly took her hand, excited about the impressive skill she had hidden, and expressed his gratitude for their victory. Yu's reaction surprised Nana, but it also relieved her, realizing her combat abilities were indeed useful. The people around discussed the witness power, estimating it to be at least level A or higher. Yu proceeded to pick up the mana stone and suggested distributing the spoils to avoid unnecessary attention. As news of the reward spread, a man in a black suit was surprised at the amount of mana stone a group received. However, other hunters, though somewhat resentful, accepted it because Kusaku had defeated the monster in a flash. Ultimately, the way the rewards were distributed was unanimously agreed upon. After the division, Kusaku complained that their group should have received more, but you explained that taking too much would raise suspicions. He thought letting Kusaku, a level C hunter, stand out more than himself was a safer choice. As the group discussed the battle, you also mentioned that he had promised to take Nana out to eat and invited Kusaku to join. Hearing this, Kusaku teased them both before leaving you and Nana somewhat embarrassed. You and Nana went to a sushi restaurant. Looking at the expensive sushi plates on the table, he internally struggled because this was not conveyor belt sushi, but a high-end type. As Nana began to talk about her secret, you ate while listening intently. She admitted that her profession was not a fake therapist. However, before you could react, the system announced that he had achieved a new milestone, unlocking an equipment store. Too focused on the system, he missed some of Nana's words. Realizing this, she appeared worried, but you quickly reassured her that it was no problem. After the meal ended, you picked up the bill and paled upon seeing the amount nearly 500,000 yen. Exhausted, he paid the bill. Meanwhile, at another location, Hisashi was infuriated upon learning that Kusaku's share was 40%, deeming it an unusual arrangement. His subordinates doubted the true strength of Kusaku and Yu. One of them mentioned the possibility of Yu's second awakening. Hisashi felt a bad omen and worried about its potential impact on that person. As his subordinates continued to discuss, he suddenly suffered a severe headache. One of them, in panic, mentioned that person who occasionally possesses others and manifests in this manner. Right after, Hisashi's eyes turned fiery red, and he uttered just one word: kill. At the weapon repair shop, the owner was fixing a crossbow for Yu. Issues like frame integrity, joint stability, elasticity, and friction damage had been addressed. After finishing, he was pleased with the outcome and called Yu to pick it up. He was surprised by the speed of the repairs, and the owner laughed, praising him as a master crossbowman. You mentioned that lately his group had been killing more monsters, which significantly increased their rewards. The owner jokingly asked if he was dating anyone, startling Yu into denial. However, he remembered the dinner with Nana and their argument with the restaurant staff over the bill. Yu thought to himself that he couldn't check the equipment store yesterday because he was with her. While pondering, he decided to purchase a mysterious item. In the dungeon, the hunters encountered a giant golem made of earth and stone. Kusaku was frustrated as his slashes were ineffective. You realized that destroying the core was the only way to defeat it, but if protective debris remained, the damage would be minimal. As everyone grew exhausted, you suggested Nana use her enhancement skill. She agreed and could use it up to 2 times right then. After discussing with the team leader, he planned an attack. Provoked about his strength, Kusaku forcefully struck the golem, revealing its vulnerability. The team leader ordered the mages to use chains to restrain the golem's limbs, exposing the core. You then shot a bullet enhanced by Nana's skill. The system announced the enemy's defeat, and the team earned 3,730 P. Before they could celebrate, the ground shook violently with a sandstorm. While focusing on the surroundings, you sensed a powerful magical force from the entrance. Sensing danger, he immediately called for Nana, but an assassin suddenly appeared targeting her. Meanwhile, in Hisashi's office, someone mentioned that if you were left free, he might discover the existence of the container. Hisashi ordered a plan adjustment, targeting the vulnerabilities of both and prioritizing the fake healer's elimination. Back in the dungeon, Nana was panicked by the assassin's attack, but fortunately, you appeared just in time. He remembered his decision to buy the mysterious item earlier and immediately activated its special effect, Mana Shield. A giant shield appeared, blocking the attack. The assassin panicked, not expecting this turn of events, especially since Yu was only a level F and possessed a power not in his data.